And so, here we are. The Call of Duty that started me on the path, more or less, for not only rated M games, but for the entire Call of Duty franchise in general. And I've been eager to talk about this game for quite a minute now, and here we are finally. Because, well, let's start with how I got introduced to Black Ops 1. I believe, if I have it correct, it was either July of 2011, somewhere in there. I'm just trying to think what specifically it was. And I believe it was on Xbox. Or maybe it was PlayStation 3. I don't know. It's been about 14 years. It's kind of hard to recollect that kind of stuff. But I was playing it at a cousin's house. And it was the split screen for Black Ops 1. But then there was the zombies, Kino der Toten. Because, see, this was 2011. This was towards the end of Black Ops 1's life cycle. So they were playing basically just the maps they had. They didn't have any of the DLCs, if I remember correctly. And it was before even Moon had come out, or the Resurrection Pack. So that was pretty much my introduction to it. Was once I saw them playing it, I was curious what game it was, and we just kept playing it over and over. And this was at the house, my Uncle George's house, which he still has to this day, and I actually remember exactly the area where it happened. Now it's just a living room, not a weird basement bar setup, if my memory remembers it correctly. So, but anyway, let's just get started right into the campaign, which Black Ops 1's campaign is top tier. I consider this to be one of 3 favorite campaigns of Call of Duty of mine. I will reveal the other ones later on, but these are more personal favorites. But this campaign is truly, well, it's truly a mindfuck. It screws with you. And obviously spoilers for those who have not played this game, and this comes with any one of my experience with Call of Duties. I'm going to definitely, just talk my mind. I could try my best to keep spoilers out, but ultimately I think it just becomes harder. But with the campaign, honestly, my 2 favorite missions in this campaign, I have footage of it, is, the Vorkuta mission. Straight, high-octane, raw action, Reznov, from World at War, which I don't know Reznov from World at War at that time, since this was my first COD, but, I went back to World at War and was kind of shocked that it was the same person. And then I would be even more shocked later on when I find out it was Gary Oldman, the actor from The Dark Knight, as Commissioner Gordon. Anyway, going down a rabbit hole there. But man, I just love this mission. I mean, even the memes that have come through this mission alone by Reznov's steps to freedom, it's hilarious to me. But you can see why it's memed, because it's such a well-designed mission, and I just really, really, really like this mission. It's a simple heist prison break mission, and you can't go wrong with that. You really can't go wrong with that in general. And one of the things that the campaign does so well is, well, first off, this is the first time we're actually playing as a voiced protagonist. I think every Call of Duty before this point, the character didn't have a voice, but Mason talks. And I love how that's Sam Worthington, from Clash of Titans fame, the Avatar movies, the blue alien people that James Cameron makes. This is who he is. And he voices Alex Mason in here, and he does a great job, phenomenal job. But we cannot forget one of, if not the best side characters in Call of Duty, Woods himself. Played by James C. Burns. This character is so badass. He doesn't get that much screen time in this game, but his presence is felt. And you just love every scene he chews. And man, he just does such a great job with this character that no one could replace him. No one could replace him. This is his character. But anyway, there's nothing more that needs to be said. If you've played the campaign, you know how badass he is, and every single one of his one-liners is just great. He's a personified badass, and he proves it in his actions. And it would continue on into Black Ops 2, which we will talk about that Call of Duty when it gets to that. But man, Great character all around. And I love how Ice Cube was in this as Bowman, which, man, I wish he had more screen time. I wish he survived till the end, but, you know, his death, to be fair, does up the stakes a bit. But, man, he does a great job, too. Never forget Bowman. Never forget Bowman. But the one thing that I think makes this campaign such a standout... Oh, I even forgot. I believe Ed Harris voices, you know, Mr. Shades, Hudson. I do know that they changed his voice actor in Black Ops 2 to Michael Keaton, which I was shocked. They honestly sound nearly the same. It's weird how they change actors, but regardless, it is what it is. They both do a great job as playing as Hudson, but still, Ed Harris did a great job as well. And it's, you know, again, it's good characters all around. But the one thing that makes this campaign such a standout, really, is the mind fuck that it has of Reznov not being alive. And honestly, when you replay this campaign, you're just like, wow, I did not realize that this game was literally building it up, and the details are there. You hear the numbers, for the most part, whenever Reznov appears in the background. You have to listen to it very closely to be able to catch it. Especially in the Tet Offensive mission, which, you know, that's when he makes his appearance. That mission's a lot of fun, too. Just, again, more high-octane action, that kind of stuff. And it's just... I don't know. As a kid, I like just shooting things and having fun. You know, this game was actually... That mission was my introduction to Dragon's Breath, which I hope one day to actually fire it myself, but it is a fire hazard. But it's such a cool round to shoot out of a shotgun. It's amazing. And it does spread like that, too. It's very, very deadly. Probably a violation of the Geneva suggestion somewhere there. But anyway, who cares? But regardless, the reveal that Reznov was never alive is just such a big twist that you don't really see coming. And you're just like, this whole time you believed everything that Mason was saying in the interrogation room. And in the end, he was lying. But that's because he was tricked because, you know, Reznov reprogrammed what they were trying to do in his head, into Mason's head, to turn him into a sleeper agent. Which, you know, at the end of the campaign, they reveal that Mason was activated and most likely killed JFK. Now, here's what's kind of funny about that now. Now that the JFK files have been released, it makes this story even more interesting to me. But, I mean, hey, the CIA is going to be the CIA, which is not a good thing. Let me tell you, that's not a good thing. But there's other channels that will cover why that's the case. All you have to do is look at what's been coming out about U.S. aid, as well as just how the CIA was using it. But anyway, that's not the point. That's not the point of this video. The point of this video is that reveal at the end. You know, as a kid, I was so confused because I was like, was that actually real? And they just used him in the background? Or did they, you know, obviously CGI him in, which is what probably happened. But it's just so cool to see, again, another campaign set in history, U.S. history, that is actually, you know, follows it close enough and follows the time period close enough and does a great job all around with it. And I have nothing really crazy else to say about this campaign. It's just good all around. If you haven't played in a while, I recommend playing it again. You know, this is where I think Call of Duty campaigns peaked, and they got better here on out for the most part. Up until, well, we'll get to that cutoff point. But I just really like that this campaign was a nice, good package all around. Great stakes and high-octane action and just great plot all around and satisfying ending and conclusion. Like, just so many good things about this campaign that I could gush on and on about, and even in the specifics of the nitty-gritty details. But ultimately, like, even the zombie maps taking assets from this campaign too, because some of these mission designs are so well done and so well thought out. But like I said, you know, it's just a good campaign all around, and I recommend you give it a shot if you haven't already. But which leads us now into the multiplayer section. Now, Black Ops 1's multiplayer, I mean, what else is there to really, I guess, be said? Well, there's a few things. I mean, first off, this game popularized and still popularized the inclusion of every Treyarch game having Nuketown, which, at this point, I've now grown to hate the map. Not the original or even the Black Ops 2 version. But, man, I just hate that Nuketown is literally in every single one of their Call of Duties, and it's getting on my nerves. I think it's getting on a lot of people's nerves. But regardless, the original, the OG, hey, it was great to play, felt fun to play, not too overbearing, not too crazy. It just was fun joy to be had. And I just loved this multiplayer. Like, one of my favorite memories is on the PS3, Gold camo was unlocked in the offline, well, the local side from the start. So I was able to put gold camo on all the guns, and I just had fun playing against bots. Because this game was the first Call of Duty to have bots officially integrated into the game. And I think the bots are decent. I do love how there's a bot, and if you don't believe it, you can, play Black Ops 1 with nothing but bots for a bit. But there's a bot named Larry. Just a random bot named Larry. And I always, when I was a kid, I was like, hey, Larry's on my team. Or, oh no, Larry killed me. Why? I don't know. I was a kid. It's one of the memories I have is that there's a bot named Larry out of all the developers' like usernames in the game, because that's what the bot names are. They're the developers' usernames with the 3-arc clan tag. But for whatever reason, there's just Larry. Freaking Larry. I don't know. Maybe there's some lore history I don't know about that name derived from, or there's a reason for it to being in there. But I think that Black Ops 1's multiplayer, for the most part, was balanced well throughout. And this was also our introduction for the first time to COD points. Not the microtransaction version, but COD points, where when you ranked up, the level was you getting COD points and getting COD points earned at the end of every match. And then there were party games where you could gamble those COD points, and you bought everything with it. And, gold camo you would eventually get if you prestiged enough times and, had enough COD points to afford it. It was like, 50k COD points for gold camo on one gun? Pretty expensive. But I really like this system. And, being able to buy everything with COD points you accumulate is really nice to have, because then, like, even the score streaks and the perks, upgrade the perks, the equipment, everything required COD points in this game. And it just felt nice to have. It was like a nice change of pace, a nice feel of freedom to being able to buy, whatever the heck you wanted at your own pace. And then if you bought X amount of guns, you got access to an exclusive gun to be able to buy and then try out. Sometimes they weren't always better than the ones offered, but, hey, it was there. It was choice. Players were allowed to pick and choose what they wanted to do. Obviously, there were better weapons than others, but, again, that choice, everything was there. And I just remember those nights, not only playing against those bots, but I did play online quite a few times. And, I was the squeaker, and it was fun. I remember my dad getting pissed that, stop screaming at the TV or stop using that kind of language. Take a break. Still hear it to this day, but still, regardless, it was fun to play. And I just had a good time all around with it. I didn't meet too many friends on there. But, man, Black Ops 1's multiplayer, it's just more great Call of Duty. More good Call of Duty food. And, obviously, the formula would change from here on out. But we never really had a Call of Duty sort of like this, again, with a system like this again. And I kind of miss it. I don't know about the newer CODs in the Warzone era. I don't have any desire to do it. But, some people did criticize and miss the pick 10 system and the ranking up weapons, because it did kind of hurt, progression in the sense of, you didn't have to really rank up a gun to get attachments unlocked. You just had to get the COD points. So there were pros and cons with the whole system. It was just depending on the sort of play style you wanted to go for. And like I said, that's all I really have. Like, I mean, there's a lot of great maps in this. I'm trying to think of more to talk about, because just a lot of the vanilla maps are what I played. I didn't really get a chance to play the DLC maps until I ended up buying my copy on PC, which I did buy on PC a little bit later, like a couple years later. Not much to really say there. I mean, there were mods. We did have mods allowed in multiplayer. Zombies, there were beta tools, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But for multiplayer, for the most part, it was maps, custom maps, sort of, but mods. Like, there was a Zombitron mod where it turned all the maps into, like, some sort of zombie survival thing, which kind of worked, but then didn't really work, so you're just like, it worked to an extent. But still, regardless, it was a lot more fun. And, there's now more multiplayer mods, like Bot Warfare it's got a weird release with Plutonium, which is what I've been playing in this game on. It doesn't fully work, and they're still, I guess they're waiting for the mod author to make their 1.2 release to finally get it to work. Because recently, Plutonium's mod support, it was a bit bugged, and even Black Ops 1's plutonium was a bit bugged, but they fixed it about a month or two ago, finally. So now Black Ops 1 is up to a nice standard. But, hey, the game's still alive on plutonium. This game did have dedicated servers brought back, which was very nice to have, because a lot of people in Modern Warfare 2 were pissed about that. But, hey, we got them back, and we got it all figured out. So that's all I really have to say about the multiplayer, because with the zombies, I have a lot more to talk about. Because in the zombies, there's quite a bit to talk about. And I say this because this is when Call of Duty Zombies really hit the mainstream. I mean, World at War was already starting to get popular from what I looked up. But Zombies, man, this game, it really picked up. And my memories of this Call of Duty the most that resonate with me is with Kino der Toten, which is the footage you're seeing in the background. Because I remember when, Pro Syndicate, if you guys remember him, he did the high rounds and the strategies and all that. And I remember watching him back in the computer at the library. And obviously, he kind of would be exposed to be sort of faking his videos and all that. But it is what it is. That's not the point. It's the legacy of Kino is what matters here, in that I remember playing this map, and my brother wanted to participate in it. Now, at the time, he was only 7 or 8 years old, and I remember we were playing, and, he wanted me to protect it because it was split screen. This was on PS3, and actually, now that I think about it on a side note, I think this was actually on the PS3 that my cousin was playing. I just remembered that as I was recording. But anyway, with him, he wanted me to protect it, but he was so scared. We had to pause like once or twice for him to just catch his breath and to kind of like take a minute. And I thought it was funny, and I still think it's funny, because he was so scared and nervous about the zombies. Because honestly, even getting this footage, you really feel and see just how terrifying even Kino was. I mean, obviously, World at War was a lot more terrifying, but Black Ops 1... man, they really upped the terrifying factor in certain ways, but then also brought the colors and dialed back the fear a little bit. And, it just, like I said, cracks me up. And sadly, we did not have custom maps. There were beta tools, but they were never fully finished from what I understand. But people were able to make them work, and I think now people have kind of reverse engineered and continued the tools, because now you can create custom maps. There is, I think it's called Parish, which is, because originally Moon was supposed to be in Paris. This is supposed to be that Paris map, following the same moon layout and everything. But regardless, we didn't get custom maps at first, which sucked. But I did use the console commands to, train around in zombies, learn how to kind of, practice and train the zombies, learn the maps. Because I remember that in order for you to use the console command, there was no console command. Now there is because of plutonium. But at the time, you had to modify a config file and then put them in as like a keybind. And then you had to, like, say there is a monkey toy or something command like that. And I binded, O was the key I used for God mode, just to, again, practice training. It was a way for me to practice. And, 5, I wasn't too much of a fan of. I enjoyed it because, I enjoyed the Presidents, but that Pentagon Thief, even to this day, I still don't like. He's annoying as shit. But Kino, I hold a special place in my heart. And it will until the day I die. I just fondly remember this map for what it did, what it brought to me as a Zombies player. And I consider it to be a top 10 map. I don't consider it to be like a top 5, but it is a top 10 map in my eyes because of the legacy it left. Like, this is when the high round training strats were devised, and it was a game changer. It's what popularized a lot of YouTubers, and the zombie storyline was starting to be much more bigger and massive. And, all the maps that came out, for the most part, were solid. Ascension was really nice, maybe a little too easy, and the monkeys could be annoying, but, hey, it was still innovative and interesting at the time, and still is to this day. And it was the first Easter egg we got that actually was an Easter egg quest with a reward and everything. There was the hide-and-seek Easter egg, or whatever it was called, in World at War, but for the most part, in Black Ops 1 and 5, there was no sort of main Easter egg up until Ascension. And it would continue with Call of the Dead, which, I really like that map, and I like the characters, but man, George is annoying. I don't like annoying characters in my maps. I'm a casual zombies player, I should disclose. I don't care about Easter eggs that much. I did complete them in Black Ops 1 and 2, but for the most part, I've not given a shit about the Easter eggs in Call of Duty, and I honestly don't think I will anymore. It just never really grabbed my attention, and honestly, I had a lot more of an easier time getting a raid together for Destiny 2 than I ever did trying to get people to want to do the Easter egg in Call of Duty. It's just how it was. So, but hey, I'm not ragging on anyone that wants to do Easter eggs. You know, you guys do you. I ain't gonna try to stop you or fight you over it. But the rest of the DLC maps, you know, Shangri-La was a lot harder, but I more or less figured it out. And then Moon has always been a mixed bag for me. You know, there's times I like it, and then there's times I don't. And honestly, the way the Easter egg storyline does end is amazing. But, you know, it is what it is. And, you know, everything after Moon, I think the story just gets really convoluted. Even in Black Ops 2, it gets a little weird and convoluted. But I still like the, you know, we blew up the map. We got all the perks. Once we were done with the Easter egg, it was, you know, hey, fun times all around to have. And I remember beating it solo through... Though it wasn't, I think it was officially soloable, but everything before, some of the Easter eggs, like Ascension and Shangri-La, they weren't, or Call of the Dead. And you had to have like a mod or console commands to make it work, which is what I did. And because I couldn't find people to do it, and I didn't want to be bothered to try to find people to do it. So overall, all the zombie maps were good. Even the ported World at War maps that were sort of remastered, so to speak, through the Resurrection DLC, those are fun to play. And you know, I really hold the zombies in this game in such a high regard because I just have a lot of nostalgia playing those late nights. I mean, going back to Kino, I got to round 100. It's the only map I've ever gotten to round 100 on. And I consider that such an accomplishment. I'm not really a high round kind of guy. Like, I go to 25 at the most, and that's about it for me. And I've had enough. Maybe like 30, 35, but then that's enough for me. But, hey, it was a good time to be alive, I would say. And I miss those days. I miss those days of middle school in a sense. But, you know, as I've said in one of my previous videos, I'd love to go back to a snapshot of the past, relive it, watch those memories again, and then just come back here. You know, but it is in the past now. And, you know, at the time I was only, you know, with Black Ops 1 and getting it on PC later on, you know, it was, you know, just me being a kid still, me being a middle schooler, so to speak. So, but regardless, it was a different, you know, it was, you know, an innocent time, so to speak. And, you know, I just wish that we really had a Call of Duty like this again. I mean, it's probably the nostalgia talking, but I just wish we had another Call of Duty like this that really touched the hearts of a lot of people, was good all around, and everyone more or less could unanimously agree. Because I think after this Call of Duty, a lot of people were starting to see that Call of Duty was becoming a bit too similar. You know, looking back, I think those claims were somewhat exaggerated, but then other times it's justified. But it's better than what we have now. I 100% agree. But at least at the time, you know, I wish that, I don't know, I wish a lot of things, but I am glad with what we got. You know, I can't pick a better time or better experience that I could have spent playing this Call of Duty, and I'm very grateful it came into my life. So I think that's all I really have to say in this video about Black Ops 1, you know, it being my first COD. And I hold it in a special regard, as I've said before, and I will continue to. And I'm just glad I was introduced through Call of Duty through this COD, not like anything that came a little bit afterwards, which some people were, you know, not knocking that. But this is the one that really introduced me to, you know, the Call of Duty franchise, and that I've still sort of kept in a regard to this day. So, anyway, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Hit the notification bell so that you are notified when I post these videos. And also, let me know what your guys' experience with Black Ops 1 is, since this was the Call of Duty that really more or less started it all when it comes to zombies and it being popular. Let me know what your guys' opinions and experiences with not only the zombies, but the multiplayer and even the campaign. And anyway, I will see you guys Tuesday with another video.